Good afternoon. So I'm going to start Second Maccabees and try to get the first three chapters done here real quick before I cook some food up. Second Maccabees chapter 1. The brethren, the Jews that be at Jerusalem in the land of Judea, wish unto the brethren, the Jews that are throughout Egypt, health and peace. God be gracious unto you, and remember his covenant that he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his faithful servants, and give you all a heart to serve him and to do his will with a good courage and a willing mind, and open your hearts in his law and commandments, and send you peace, and hear your prayers, and be at one with you, and never forsake you in time of trouble. And now we be here praying for you. What time as Demetrius reigned in the 169th year, we the Jews wrote unto you in the extremity of trouble that came upon us in those years, from the first time that Jason and his company revolted from the Holy Land and kingdom, and burned the porch and shed innocent blood, that we prayed unto the Lord and were heard. We offered also sacrifices and fine flour, and lighted the lamps, and set forth the loaves. And now see that ye keep the feast of tabernacles in the month Caslu. In the 168th year, the people that were at Jerusalem and in Judea, and the council, and Judas, sent greeting and health unto Aristobulus, King Ptolemy, master, who was of the stock of the anointed priests, and to the Jews that were in Egypt. Insomuch as God hath delivered us from great perils, we thank him highly, as having been in battle against a king. For he cast them out that fought within the holy city. For when the leader was come into Persia, and the army with him that seemed invincible, they were slain in the temple of Nania by the deceit of Nania's priests. For Antiochus, as though he would marry her, came into the place, and his friends that were with him, to receive money in name of a dowry. Which, when the priest of Nania had set forth, and he was entered into a small company into the compass of the temple, they shut the temple as soon as Antiochus was come in, and opening a privy door of the roof, they threw stones like thunderbolts, and struck down the captain, hewed them in pieces, smote off their heads, and cast them to those that were without. Blessed be our God in all things, who hath delivered up the ungodly. Therefore, whereas we are now proposed to keep the purification of the temple upon the 25th day of the month Caslu, we thought it necessary to certify you thereof, that ye also might keep it, as the feast of the tabernacles, and of the fire, which was given us with Nehemias offered sacrifice. After that he had builded the temple and the altar. For when our fathers were led into Persia, the priests that were then devout took the fire of the altar privily, and hid it in a hollow place of a pit without water, where they kept it sure, so that the place was unknown to all men. Now after many years, when it pleased God, Nehemias, being sent from the king of Persia, did send off the posterity of those priests that had hid in it to the fire. But when they told us, they found no fire, but thick water. Then commanded he them to draw it up and to bring it. And when the sacrifices were laid on, Nehemias commanded the priests to sprinkle the wood and the things laid upon thereupon with the water. When this was done, and the time came that the sun shone, which afore was hid in the cloud, there was a great fire kindled, so that every man marveled. And the priest made a prayer whilst the sacrifice was consuming. I say both the priest and all the rest, Jonathan beginning, and the rest answering thereunto, as Nehemias did. And the prayer was after this manner: O Lord, Lord God, creator of all things, who art fearful and strong and righteous and merciful, and the only and gracious King, the only giver of all things, the only just, almighty, and everlasting, thou that deliverest Israel from all trouble, and didst choose the fathers and sanctify them. Receive the sacrifice for thy whole people Israel, and preserve their own portion, and sanctify it. Gather those together that are scattered from us, deliver them that serve among the heathen. Look upon them that are despised and abhorred, and let the heathen know that thou art our God. Punish them that oppress us, and with pride do us wrong. Plant the people again in thy holy place, as Moses hath spoken. And the priests sung psalms of thanksgiving. Now when the sacrifice was consumed, Nehemiah commanded the water that was left to be poured on the great stones. When this was done, there was kindled a flame, but it was consumed by the light that shined from the altar. So when this matter was known, it was told the king of Persia, and that in that place where the priests and were led away had hid the fire, there appeared water, and that Nehemiah had purified the sacrifices therewith. Then the king, enclosing the place, made it holy after he had tried the matter. And the king took many gifts and bestowed thereof on those whom he would gratify. And Nehemiah called the thing Nephthar, which is as much as to say a cleansing, but men will call it Nephi. I'm not reading very well again, sorry. Uh-oh. Great. Okay, sorry about that. Second Maccabees chapter 2. It is also found in the records that Jeremy, the prophet, commanded them that were carried away to take of the fire, as it hath been signified, and how that the prophet, having given the law, charged them not to forget the commandments of the Lord, and that they should not err in their minds, when they see images of silver and gold with their ornaments. And with other such speeches exhorted he them, that the law should not depart from their hearts. It was also contained in the same writing that the prophet being warned of God, commanded the tabernacle and the ark to go with him, as he went forth into the mountain where Moses climbed up and saw the heritage of God. And when Jeremy came hither, he found a hollow cave, wherein he laid the tabernacle and the ark and the altar of incense, and so stopped the door. Some of those that followed him came to mark the way, but they could not find it. Which when Jeremy perceived, he blamed them, saying, As for that place, it shall be unknown until the time that God gather his people again together, and receive them unto mercy. Then shall the Lord show them these things, and the glory of the Lord shall appear, and the cloud also, as it was showed under Moses, and as when Solomon desired that the place might be honorably sanctified. It was also declared that he, being wise, offered the sacrifice of dedication and of the finishing of the temple. And as when Moses prayed unto the Lord, the fire came down from heaven and consumed the sacrifices, even so prayed Solomon also, and the fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offerings. And Moses said, Because the sin offering was not to be eaten, it was consumed. So Solomon kept those 8 days. Same things also were reported in the writings and commentaries of Nehemiah, and how he, founding a library, gathered together the Acts of the Kings and the prophets, and of David, and the epistles of the kings concerning the holy gifts. In like manner also Judas gathered together all those things that were lost by reason of the war we had, and that they remain with us. Wherefore, if ye have need thereof, send some to fetch them unto you. Whereas we then are about to celebrate the purification, we have written unto you, and we shall do well if we keep the same days. We hope also that the God that delivered all his people and gave them all an heritage and the kingdom and the priesthood and the sanctuary, all he promised in the law, will shortly have mercy upon us and gather us together out of every land under heaven into the holy place. For he hath delivered us out of great troubles and hath purified the place. Now as concerning Judas Maccabeus and his brethren and the purification of the great temple and the dedication of the altar, and the wars against Antiochus Epiphanes and Epater his son, and the manifest signs that came from heaven unto those that behaved themselves manfully to their honor for Judaism, so that being but a few, they overcame the whole country and chased barbarous multitudes, and recovered again the temple renowned all the world over, and freed the city, and upheld the laws which were going down, the Lord being gracious unto them with all favor. And these things I say, being declared by Jason of Cyrene in 5 books, we will say to abridge in 1 volume. For considering the infinite number and the difficulty which they find that desire to look into the narrations of the story for the variety of the matter, we have been careful that they will read may have delight, and that they that are desirous to commit to memory might have ease, and that also all into whose hands it comes might have profit. Therefore to us that have taken upon us this painful labor of abridging, it was not easy, but a matter of sweat and watching, even as it is no ease unto him that prepareth a banquet, and seeketh the benefit of others, yet for the pleasuring of many we will undertake gladly this great pains, leaving to the author the exact handling of every particular, and laboring to follow the rules of an abridgment. For as the master builder of a new house must care for the whole building, but he that undertaketh to sell it out and paint it must seek out fit things for the adorning thereof. Even so I think it is with us. To stand upon every point and go over things at large, and to be curious in particulars, belongeth to the first author of the story. But to use brevity and avoid much laboring of the work is to be granted to him that will make an abridgment. Here then will we begin the story, only adding thus much to that which hath been said, that is a foolish thing to make a long prologue, and to be short in the story itself. Chapter 3. Now when the holy city was inhabited, wait a minute. Okay, sorry. I didn't think it was recording. Now when the holy city was inhabited with all peace, and the laws were kept very well because of the godliness of Onias the high priest and his hatred of wickedness, it came to pass that even the kings themselves did honor the place and magnify the temple with their best gifts, insomuch that Seleucus of Asia, of his own revenues, bare all the cost belonging to the service of the sacrifices. But one Simon of the tribe of Benjamin, who was made governor of the temple, fell out with the high priest about disorder in the city. And when he could not overcome Onias, he gat him to Apollonius, the son of Thrasias, who then was governor of Seleucia and Phoenice, and told him that the treasury in Jerusalem and full of infinite sums of money, so that the multitude of their riches, which did not pertain to the account of the sacrifices, was innumerable, and that it was possible to bring all the king's hand. Now when Apollonius came to the king, and had showed him of the money whereof he was told, the king chose out Heliodorus, his treasurer, and sent him with a commandment to bring him the foresaid money. So forthwith Heliodorus took his journey under color of visiting the cities of Celesyria and Phenice, and indeed to fulfill the king's purpose. And when he was come to Jerusalem, and had been courteously received of the high priest of the city, he told him what intelligence was given of the money, and declared wherefore he came, and asked if these things were so indeed. Then the high priest told him that there was such money laid up for the relief of widows and fatherless children, and that some of it belonged to Hyrcanus, son of Tobias, a man of great dignity, and not as the wicked Simon had misinformed. The sum whereof in all was 400 talents of silver and 200 of gold, and that it was altogether impossible that such wrong should be done unto them that had committed it to the holiness of the place, and to the majesty and inviolable sanctity of the temple, honored over all the world. But Heliodorus, because of the king's commandment given him, said that in any wise it must be brought unto the king's treasury. So at the day which he appointed, he entered it in to order this matter, wherefore there was no small agony throughout the whole city. But the priests, prostrating themselves before the altar in their priests' vestments, called unto heaven upon him that made a law concerning things given to he kept, that they should safely be preserved for such as had commanded them to be kept. Then whoso had looked the high priest in the face, it would have wounded his heart, for his countenance and the changing of his color declared the inward agony of his mind. For the man was so compassed with fear and horror of the body, that it was manifest to them that looked upon him what sorrow he had now in his heart. Others ran flocking out of their houses to the general supplication, because the place was like to come into contempt. And the women girt with sackcloth under their breasts abounded in the streets, and the virgins that were kept and ran, some to the gates, and some to the walls, and others looked out the windows, and all holding their hands towards heaven made supplication. Then it would have pitied a man to see the falling down of the multitude of all sorts, and the fear of the high priest being in such an agony. They then called upon the Almighty Lord to keep the things committed of trust safe and sure for those that had committed them. Nevertheless, Heliodorus executed that which was decreed. Now, as he was there present himself with his guard about the treasury, the Lord of spirits and the Prince of all power caused a great apparition, so that all that presumed to come in with him were astonished at the power of God, and fainted, and were sore afraid. For there appeared unto them a horse with a terrible rider upon him, and adorned with a very fair covering, and he ran fiercely, and smote at Heliodorus with his forefeet, and it seemed that he that sat upon the horse had complete harness of gold. Moreover, 2 other young men appeared before him, notable in strength, excellent in beauty, and comely in apparel, who stood by him on either side, and scourged him continually, and gave him many sore stripes. And Heliodorus fell suddenly under the ground, and was compassed with great darkness. But they that were with him took him up, and put him into a litter. Thus him that lately came with a great train, and with all his guard, into the said treasury, they carried out, being unable to help himself with his weapons, and manifestly they acknowledged the power of God. For he, by the hand of God, was cast down, and lay speechless, without all hope of life. But they praised the Lord that had miraculously honored his own place for the temple, which a little afore was full of fear and trouble. When the Almighty Lord appeared, was filled with joy and gladness. Then straightway certain of Heliodorus' friends prayed Onias that he would call upon the Most High to grant him his life, who lay ready to give up the ghost. So the high priest, suspecting lest the king should misconceive that some treachery had been done to Heliodorus by the Jews, offered a sacrifice for the health of the man. Now, as the high priest was making an atonement, the same young men in the same clothing appeared and stood beside Heliodorus, saying, Give Onias the high priest great thanks, insomuch as for his sake the Lord hath granted thee life. And seeing that thou hast been scourged from heaven, declare unto all men the mighty power of God. And when they had spoken these words, they appeared no more. So Heliodorus, after he had offered sacrifice unto the Lord, and made great vows unto him that had saved his life, and saluted Onias, returned with his host to the king. Then testified he to all men the works of the great God, which he had seen with his eyes. And when the king Heliodorus, who might be a fit man to be sent yet again to Jerusalem, he said, If thou hast any enemy or traitor, send them thither, and thou shalt receive him well scourged. If he escape with his life, for in that place no doubt there is an especial power of God. For he that dwelleth in heaven hath his eye on that place, and defendeth it, and he beateth and destroyeth them that come to hurt it. And the things concerning Heliodorus and the keeping of the treasury fell out of this sort.